All right, no problem.
We're now live on YouTube.
Thank you, Leah. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Cabinet meeting of Broadland District Council on the 16th of March. Just be aware that this is a public meeting and is being live screened on the Council's YouTube channel. I'd just like to remind everyone around the general etiquette. Don't intend to go through all of the processes that we've adopted for Zoom meetings, but just remember that relating to microphones is usually easier if they're on mute. Just avoids the background noises and those sort of things. Again, if you want to speak, if you can just raise your hand to indicate, and I'll either notice you, or if I don't, then I will be directed to notice you by one of the officers, and we can obviously invite you in at that point in time. So without further ado, we'll kick off. So first item is to deal with declarations of interest and also around doing a roll call for attendance. So James, do you want to kick off?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Copplestone, do you have any declarations?
No declarations, thank you.
Councillor Emsall.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Hempsall.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Leggett.
Present, and I do have a declaration of interest regarding agenda item 10 as a trustee of Leeway Domestic Violence and Abuse Services. They are mentioned in the spreadsheet.
See. Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Vincent.
Present and no declarations.
And Councillor Wymark.
Present and no declarations of interest. Thank you.
And Councillor Riley is also present. Do you have any declarations?
No declarations, thank you.
Thank you. That's complete, Chairman.
Thank you, James. Okay, that moves us on then to the minutes of the 9th of February. I'll take those on block. So is there any things in the minutes that anyone would like updating, changing, amending, adding? So Judy, I saw your hand first, followed by Fran. Judy?
Yes, please, on page 16, minute 198, the 6th paragraph, can you please change contractor to contract, because that statement refers to the contract.
Yeah, that would make sense. Did you see that, James?
That's page 16, and that's
the 6th paragraph.
The new waste contractor. So that wants to be changed to contract.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Fran, you?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, page 19, it's the 3rd paragraph down. It says Cabinet was advised that the moratorium of understanding. I think it should be memorandum of understanding. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll get that updated. Thank you for that. Is there anything for anybody else? Jonathan?
Yeah, just James, on page 16, the portfolio hold title in paragraph 5 is only half the portfolio title has been put, so it's just a simple correction there.
Right. Transformation should be there as well, shouldn't it?
Okay, subject to those changes, I'll sign those off as a valid record unless I can't see anything. So can just show of hands that you're happy with that? Okay, thank you. That's everybody by the looks of it, James. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, are there any matters arising for anybody in there that's not on tonight's agenda? No, lots of shaking heads. So no, we'll move on then. So that moves us on then to public speaking, which I believe there isn't any.
There's no public speaking.
Nope. Thank you, James. Non-representative member, sorry, representative non-cabinet members. There aren't any here other than Steve. So Steve, oh sorry, Martin, you've joined us. So if there is anything that you want to say, Martin, obviously if you can just put your hand up or indicate, and if it's appropriate or I feel I can let you in at that point in time, obviously I will do so. So as we go through.
Chairman, if I may, I didn't ask Councillor Morrell if he had any declarations of interest.
Present, no declarations.
Thank you.
Thank you, James, for picking us up on the process. Move us on then to overview and scrutiny. Again, in the same way, Steve, if there's anything you want to raise as we go through, then we can do that at the relevant points. But I don't know if there's anything you want to raise at this point in time.
Thank you, Jim. I think you were just referring to me. I had a freeze here, actually. Yeah, I'd just like to refer this. It actually speeds things up tonight for you as well, Chair. All of the recommendations from ONS are as the reports came to us. So it's pretty straightforward. There's nothing really for me to raise at all. I believe that Tony is going to be here tonight because unfortunately I do have to leave as well. Bearing in mind we don't have any variance to reports anyway. I've just got a bit of a crisis over gas supply in the house. But I think Tony will be joining, but there isn't anything for us to report in any way from the ONS committee. It is what it is in terms of reports. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that, Steve. I hope the crisis resolves itself for you in a satisfactory way, and obviously we'll look out for Tony when he arrives. Thank you for that. But if you do find that there's a need that you want to interject on anything, then just let me know, and we can obviously deal with that at that point in time.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so that moves us on then to item 8, page 21, which is the Economic Success Panel. So, Joe, did you want to come in here?
Yes, please. I just ask Cabinet to receive the minutes of the Economic Success Panel, which was held on the 1st of February. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. We'll receive those minutes. Moving on then to the Well Panel. Fran?
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like you to receive the minutes of the meeting of the Wellbeing Panel held on the 3rd of February. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll receive those. That moves us on then to item 10, which is the Q3 Strategic Performance and Finance Reports, which start at page 28. Again, these are highlighting the performance over the year so far up to Q3 of Broadland, and also some of the aspects working in collaboration with South Norfolk, and the amazing achievements that the one team are doing for both councils. So, Sinead, I believe this would be you to start for us. So did you want to come in at this point?
Yes, lovely. Thank you, Chair. So I'll cover off the performance element of the report that you've got in front of you today, and then I'll hand over to Maddie, who will cover off the finance section. So just a reminder, so this report covers the period of Q3, which is from October to December last year. And our performance reports essentially provide an overview of where we are performing against our in-year delivery plan for 2020-21. So for Q3, in terms of overall health of the council based on the delivery measures, so 11 of our measures are currently showing as green, and this means they are on track to be delivered against our year-end success criteria that we set in our delivery plan. 6 of those measures are currently showing as amber at the moment, and this means they're currently at risk of not achieving that year-end success criteria that we've set. 2 are currently showing as red, and this means they are not on track at the moment to meet our year-end success criteria. 9 are being baseline this year, and the remaining are annual measures which will report through to Cabinet as part of the Q4 reports. So just to bring a few highlights and some of the areas for improvement through Q3 to your attention, and I'll do that by our corporate priority areas. So first area is around supporting the economy and growing the economy. So I'll start with percentage of vacant retail space. So this is retail space within our market towns. So over the last 2 quarters, the figures have remained relatively stable in terms of vacant retail space, despite the ongoing increase in challenges that we face within our market towns because of the pandemic. So a risk is being managed by the service area currently on this around the potential delayed impacts on our market towns. And also the team is working currently on a suite of proposals to support economic recovery within our market towns. The second measure on this priority I just want to draw your attention to is around business rates collection. So as you can see at the moment, this measure is currently red, and this is mainly due to us expecting not to be able to achieve our 99% collection target by year end. So in Q3, we had achieved an 80% collection rate, which was below our quarter target, though the team have been working with businesses to offer extended and deferred payments where appropriate. And just moving now on to the next priority area around individuals and empowering communities. So a real success within this area over the last 3 quarters has really been around the number of days it takes our service area to process new claims of housing and council tax benefit. So this service over the last year has seen nearly 100% increase on the number of new claims coming through to that area. And when you look at the number of days on average it takes leading to Q3, it's currently sitting at 5 working days, which is below our year-end target of no more than 7 days. And it's also significantly better than past year performance as well. An area just to draw your attention to, which is currently showing as amber within this priority area, is around our successful homelessness interventions. So in Q3, our average success rate was sitting at 62%. And this is below our internal target of 80%. So we know this isn't where we want to be on this measure, and there's been a real big increase in the number of people going through to that service and requiring support through the period of COVID. And the team are currently working on improving performance through looking at recruitment, but also in terms of training as well. Just on to the next area, which is around protecting and improving our natural and built environment. The measure I just wanted to bring to your attention today is around our affordable homes delivery. So in Q3, we've seen improved affordable home ownership seen with 65 new homes being built, which is double that of the previous 2 quarters combined. And when you look at the strategic housing market assessment for Central Norfolk, the yearly target for Broadland was 96 homes, and our cumulative to Q3 is 101 already. So we're already exceeding that year-end target in Q3. The last area is moving on to more of our internal facing measures. The first is around staff absence levels. So this is short-term sickness per FTE. So we're currently sitting at 2.83 days, which is lower than our year-end target of no more than 4.5. And when you add in the COVID-related sickness lost, it increases slightly by 0.35. But when you combine the two, this is still lower than our past year performance. And then just the final measure I wanted to bring to your attentions around collection rate of council tax. So similar to that of business rates, our collection rates for council tax are lower than past year performance. And again, on this measure, we're expecting we're not going to achieve our year-end success criteria, and that's why this measure is currently showing as red. So the team have been working to re-engage and issue notices, but also to provide proactive support to residents who have been impacted by the pandemic. So I'll pause there on the performance element, and I'll hand over to Maddie, who will just talk you through the Q3 finance report.
Thank you, Sinead. Maddie, do you want to come in at this point then?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sinead. So the Q3 finance position as it's is at the moment, the estimated outturn is forecasting to show an underspend of approximately 860,000 for the year. The Managing Director and Resources Directorate are forecasting to basically come in close to budget. The Place Directorate is forecasting an underspend of around 79,000, which is predominantly driven by some vacancies within the establishments, and also the extension to the stamp duty that came in place for the national stamp duty for land charges. On the People and Communities Directorate, we are currently forecasting to underspend approximately 444,000. And the reasons for these underspends are primarily some increases in tonnages around the recycling credits, which are driven between the recycled of approximately 62,000, and then the green waste will be a net effect of about 120,000 additional income once we've taken off disposal costs. There's also 68,000 coming through in relation to the the local authority trading company, which isn't proceeding, but then we've got the offset slightly from the procurement that's coming through. And there's 129,000 favourable variance in relation to housing benefits. How that comes through in the income, non-pay and pay. So on the income, it's coming through as 3.5 million down compared to budget on income, which is predominantly driven by the reduction in housing benefit grant. There is also, that is then slightly offset, sorry, by the increases in tonnages from the recycling credits and the additional land charges of the 49,000. Within the non-pay budgets, we're forecasting an underspend of approximately 4.1 million. And again, that is the offset of the housing grant benefit not coming through. And then on the pay budgets, we're forecasting an underspend of approximately 82,000, which is primarily a result of vacancies throughout the establishments. On capital, we are currently against the budget of 10.4 million. We are forecasting at the moment to spend approximately 1.2 million against that. 4.5 of the budget is the approved schemes, and then the 5.9 is the provisional schemes. So of the 1.21 million of that is against the approved schemes. And that's the finances. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Maddie. Okay, is there anything that the two portfolio holders want to add at this point? So Trudy and then Jonathan.
Yeah, I'll probably cover off both at once if that's okay. So yeah, as Maddie has described, the underspends have been explained under each directorate. There is also in Appendix 1 a much fuller explanation. Members will also notice that there's an underspend from the COVID budget as well, which will now be taken through into 21-22. That will be carried over and will get spent in that way. Just to cover off really, as Sinead mentioned, regarding both council tax and again, business rate collection, I just think it's worth noting and putting it into a bit of perspective here. We had a Q3 target for council tax, this is of 83.3%, and we are actually on 82.53. Now, thankfully, with the proactive action that our officers have taken to engage with residents, we actually are performing above the national trend for the collection of council tax. And I think the same with business rates, really, proactively contacting them and offering payment plans, and then being able to go back and use the court service where it is appropriate when we can do, will make a difference. But the collection rates for 2021 will naturally carry on into 21-22. So retrospectively, it doesn't mean, because we're behind at the moment, it doesn't mean that we won't catch up. So I think although they're showing as a glaring red, I think we do need to, as I said, take it in a bit of perspective, because even with the business rates, target was 84.5 for Q3, and we are at 80%. Well, considering the situation we're in, I really can't see that we're not doing really well in the circumstances. So bearing in mind I've taken these both together, I'd just like to put forward the proposal that Cabinet notes both of these, items 1 and 2. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Trudy. Jonathan, anything you want to add?
Well, I'll second Trudy's proposal for the two points 1 and 2 to be noted. Just to say thank you to Maddie and Sinead for putting together the report. They've collated a lot of data here, and I think it does clearly show that even in these difficult times, as a council, we are where we need to be. We've got some good results, and when you get to Appendix 2, it's interesting reading to see how things are. I would like to obviously see moving forward just for us to look at some of the targets for the baseline figures to get even more information. And I think that will be very interesting to see, obviously, when we get to the end of this year, how things are. But overall, lots of good information in there that clearly shows we're on track to be an excellent performing council, even with everything that's been going on. So I thank the staff, in all departments for the work they've done. But like I say, the two girls who put together the report, collating all that information, it's that situation where there's a lot of data there to work through, and it's been presented very well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Jonathan. Is there any questions from other portfolio holders? So I can see Joe, then Judy.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to note that there is a mistake in 3.23 on page 37. It says the Food Enterprise Park is near Eton. It is in fact at Honningham Thorpe. And I just want to also comment on the vacant retail space in our market towns, which remain very resilient. We haven't particularly seen a negative impact on our towns yet. I know that they've had about over 38 million of COVID grant funding to our businesses, and also business rates holidays. And I just hope that our area above all remains economically resilient. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that, Joe. Judy, followed by Fran. Judy.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to record a couple of corrections. On page 30, 3.6, it refers to a doorstep collection for clinical waste. That's not quite accurate. I'm not anticipating that we're providing a doorstep collection, but it was a delay in rolling out a new scheme that enabled us to save money. And there was a measure 26 on page 69. The second paragraph refers to dry recycling, and that was just all recycling. I would like to add that measure 25, which refers to food waste, is the good news that we are adding another 1,700 houses to the food rounds. Residents who will be offered this service will be contacting the week beginning of the 12th of April. Then they will have their caddies delivered, and then collections commence on the 26th of April. And I'd just like to point out that though we measure 29, we measure missed bins, or justifiably missed bins. Obviously, they don't count the ones that were not collected during the snow. But 30, the target there, which is shown as 30 per 100,000, is really the gold standard. The average across the country would be much lower. And finally, measure 31 refers to fly tipping. Those of you who are interested in fly tipping, the rate for January this year was 54. I do realise that that is not baselined, and I did wonder why, because we've collected these figures for a long while. But that's all. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Judy. I don't know if you want to come back on that, Sinead, and just why we haven't got it actually as a measure rather than it still being baselined.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I wonder if I could hand over to Jamie potentially to answer that question.
Yeah, well diverted. Over to you, Jamie.
Thank you, Sinead. I owe you. Judy, it's Councillor Leggett, forgive me, it's something I'll look into. I haven't got the answer in front of me. I assume, as you correctly assume also, it's data we should have because it's a service we provided for a number of years. So let me look into it for you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that, Jamie. Maybe one of those things we look at as we come to the end of Q4 is review the measures and see that they're all as we'd want them to be, and again position ourselves moving forward. So it just gives us that opportunity. There may be others in there that we can start to move forward on. Okay, thank you for that. Fran, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I wanted to start off by thanking the team who put this together for the bar charts, which I can actually see clearly, because normally with the colour blindness I can't see the shading, so I can actually clearly see the differentiation there, which is excellent. So thank you for that. I just wanted to comment about a couple of things as well. I mean, it's really good to see that the staff satisfaction and general well-being seems to be in a good place, and obviously the mental health first aiders are helping with that, I'm sure, and hopefully they're well accessible with the situation we've got currently. And on from that, I think it's really good to see how we've been supporting our vulnerable residents, particularly during this very difficult time, in what is discretionary prevention services. So we something we don't have to do, but we do it because we care about our residents. So I'm very pleased about that. And also the disability facility grants and Handy Person Plus, how they're getting out and supporting our residents. So I just want to say how pleased I'm about that. And obviously the new claims for housing benefit, etc. I know the team have been under immense pressure. So the fact that we're actually in a good place is quite remarkable, actually. So I think that's excellent. And obviously with the housing allocation policy going live next month, that should hopefully help in so many ways in the housing department. So I just want to say how pleased I was. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Fran. Thank you for covering those pieces. Yeah, I'd just like to pick up perhaps on measure 1, which just really highlights the collaboration work between Broadland and South Norfolk and the way in which that's moving forward. Again, within the measure here, it highlights that we are on track to deliver the savings that were indicative at the time of when the feasibility report was pulled together. But more importantly, I think it shows that actually our team is no more resilient than it ever was, and is able to deliver better, faster, in a better quality environment, despite everything that's been chucked at them over the last year through COVID and other things such as floods, both internal and external. So there seems to be a whole host of things that the team have just stepped up and dealt with and taken in their stride, which is good. And as a result of all of those things, we're still seeing that the tracker is en route to deliver those savings, which again is welcomed not only by Broadland, but I would imagine be welcomed by South Norfolk as well. So that's a thank you from me on those bits that hadn't been covered by others at that point. So, okay, if there are no other questions, I can't see any hands up anywhere. So the recommendations are to note the 2 reports, and they're before you. So I guess we just note those. We don't need to do a vote, do we, James?
No, I don't think so, Chairman. You can just do so by a show of hands.
Okay, everyone happy with those? Put your hand up.
3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Yeah,
okay.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, James. Okay, that moves us on then to the next item, item 11, which is the COVID-19 Hardship Fund, which is on page 76. I see Richard's in the room. So, Richard, I'm guessing you're putting this one forward for us?
I am. Thank you very much, Chair. So bringing the paper here today to present the report which will extend the basic COVID hardship fund. The hardship fund has proved absolutely invaluable in providing the final safety net to residents, and I'm very much calling this fund the final safety net, where all traditional welfare and COVID support either proves unsuccessful or too timely to assist within the time that they need. This fund provides short-term rapid support to residents to assist with food and basic utilities to safeguard their well-being. As you all know, and has briefly been discussed now, the impact of COVID continues to have a significant impact on the demand of both housing and benefits. To assist, the government has provided us with £117,302. This fund accounts for £25,000 of this. The remainder of this money will form part of a holistic COVID support and recovery plan, which will be presented to COVID shortly, and I know is being currently worked on. The current policy, however, comes to an end in April, on March 31st. Therefore, bringing this to you today to make sure that we have suitable support in place to at least bridge that gap. And then once it's considered in a more holistic manner, consider it as part of the bigger picture. The fund is part of a wider support network of support package, and as I previously said, will only be utilised when no other options are available. It will also be subject to qualification criteria. However, that criteria I'm keeping very quite wide to income and capital limits, largely because the impact of COVID is being felt so widely by our residents, and therefore to come up with a very detailed policy will mean that people will fall through the net, and this is very much the safety net at the end of the line. So with all that in mind, officers are therefore recommending to Cabinet that they improve the adoption of the COVID-19 hardship fund policy for financial year 21-22. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for taking us through that, Richard. Trudy, did you want to add anything?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, just to say, really, this is about getting the right money to the right people at the right time. As Richard said, it is very much a very last resort when all avenues have been exhausted, really, and we don't want them falling through the net. It is a small portion, really, of the just over 117,000 that we have been given from central government, which includes the 500 for test and trace support and so on. So as Richard had says, the further spending of the money will come forward, but it is really important to get this in place straight away. The other thing to bear in mind, I think, when making the assessment, officers are utilising the Joseph Rowntree minimum income standard as a guidance. So I would therefore like to recommend to Cabinet 8.1 on page 79 that we approve the adoption of the hardship fund for the next financial year. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Trudy. Fran, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'd happily second the recommendation as proposed by Councillor Mancini Boyle. I think, well, I know from my work with Richard how diligent he's been about managing the money and ensuring it goes to the right place. So I'm very happy to second this policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Fran. Are there any questions from anyone? No. Okay, I just pick up on one point that was made before. Perhaps, Richard, you may be able to clarify this. That I think there was a question raised around the funding, the £25,000, whether that was part of the existing funding or additional funding. I believe it's additional funding, but perhaps you could just confirm that to us.
Rodney, you may want to step in at any point just in case I start saying things that isn't absolutely true, but it's additional funding for 21-22, isn't it, Rodney?
Yeah, he's got his thumb up. So that's on top of the funding we normally put aside, the £10,000 hardship fund. So again, that just shows. Yep. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. If there are no other questions, we can then go to the vote. We've had that proposed and seconded. So James, do we need to do a roll call?
Yes, I'll do one, Chairman. Councillor Copplestone, are you in favour of the proposal?
4, please, James. Thank you.
Councillor Emsall?
4.
Councillor Hempsall?
4.
Councillor Leggett?
4.
Councillor Mancini Boyle?
4.
Councillor Vincent?
4.
And Councillor Wymark?
4.
That's unanimous, Chairman.
Okay, thank you for that, James. And that moves us on to the next item on the agenda, which actually is listed as item 12. But item 12 has actually been deferred to the next Cabinet meeting, so we won't need to go through that at this point in time. It just enables the Service Improvement and Efficiency Committee to go through the details of this tomorrow evening. So they'll be looking at that at that point in time, and then it'll come back before ourselves at Cabinet on the 20th of April. So that moves us on then to item 13, which is affordable home ownership, which starts at page 90. I believe, Phil, you're going to introduce this for us.
Yeah, you've got me, I'm afraid, tonight. I'm going to be fairly quick. It's a fairly brief report. It follows a paper that was considered by Cabinet in 2019. It relates to affordable home ownership. So that's a type of affordable home ownership that is solely for discounted market sale and shared equity. It's about 15% of our overall affordable housing provision. What this report proposes to do is to amend the local connection priority for potential residents so that it extends that priority across the Greater Norwich area. So that includes Norwich and South Norfolk on the basis of a reciprocal arrangement with those other authorities. So the recommendation is to accept that changed priority, but for a 2-year trial. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Phil. Fran, did you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, obviously, as Phil says, the paper's a bit on the thin side, really, particularly on facts and figures, really, at the moment. So what I'd like to propose is that we have the opportunity to look at it again at the Wellbeing Panel. So if we can defer it, I'd like to propose that we defer it and send it to the Wellbeing Panel for further examination. Thank you.
Whilst you're waiting to unmute, Chair, I'm very happy just to respond. Absolutely, Councillor Wymark. I think there's some very clear facts and figures behind this paper. Absolutely recognise that they weren't embedded within this report. Very happy to bring it back to panel with those figures, and panel can take it from there.
Okay, thank you for that, Phil. So, Deb, we have an amended recommendation then from Fran to defer this. Then it'll come back at a future point in time. Is there anyone willing to second that? Trudy, thank you. Are there any other points or questions that anyone has in relation to this? It seems probably not worth doing that until we get to a later point and having discussion at that point. Yeah, no, it's all quiet. Okay, as we're deferring this, James, do we need to, perhaps Emma, do we need to vote on it, or do we just defer it? Yep, okay, so James, if we could do the roll call.
Yes, Councillor Copplestone.
Yes, I'm for deferring, thank you.
Councillor Emsall.
For.
Councillor Hempsall.
For deferral, please.
Councillor Leggett.
For deferral.
Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
For deferral.
Councillor Vincent.
For deferral.
And Councillor Wymark.
Yeah, for deferral. Thank you.
Yes, that's unanimous, Chairman. That item's deferred.
Okay, thank you, James. Okay, that moves us on then to item 14, which is on page 107 of the papers, which is the new homes bonus consultation. So this, I believe, Debbie, you want to present this one?
Yes, please, Chair. Thank you. And I apologise for the late circulation of the paper, but we wanted to try and get as much of full response or draft responses as we could before you today. I can tell you that the figure of the number of dwellings we've delivered since 2011, which are currently is shown as a highlighted X in there, is over 4,000 dwellings since that time. The questionnaires, there's 30 questions in total, and just to give you a very brief overview of the questions that they're asking and the areas they're covering. The first sort of major one really is around the split of the new homes bonus between the two-tier areas at the moment. That is 80% to districts and 20% to the counties. So they're asking that question there. There is a question on retaining the affordable premium. Just to note that the £350 that is paid actually hasn't changed since 2011 when the scheme was introduced, but we now only receive that for the 1 year. Originally, when the scheme was introduced, we got that figure for 6 years. So we are feeding back that to make that an incentive, it would need to be much greater than the 350. It then goes on to talk about empty homes. Again, further incentives have come out now around empty homes to try and bring those back, not least the fact that we can increase the council tax charged on those if there are long-term empties, particularly empty for significant amounts of time, particularly years. So there are other levers now at play there. It talks about the time period and whether the funding should be allocated based on the most recent year or the most recent 3 years. We are proposing that we should say 3 years to smooth out the payments, so that if you have a particularly bad year, it is sort of kind of protected there. And then there's 7 options that they ask. Option A is the simplest and fulfills their sort of desire to have a simple scheme that's understandable. That talks about the threshold, which was increased so they only pay over the threshold of 0.4% growth. They give some suggestions on what that could be, which includes increasing that. We're obviously proposing that we should stay with the 0.4%. Option B is about rewarding based on past performance, and they want to reward those that actually improve on their past performance. And obviously, as a council that's delivered significant housing, actually, that could be detrimental to us there. Option C is a hybrid approach, and particularly question 17 there we need to do some modelling on. We've now got some figures that we can try and do some modelling with to improve that answer there. But the hybrid model is about rewarding for each net housing addition above the lower of the percentage of the annual average of past net housing additions and the percentage of the authority's housing stock. So we just want to play out what that would mean for us, putting some figures through there. And looking ahead, obviously, at the type of figures that we think we might be delivering. Option D then is actually repurposing the bonus and using that to support lower values in areas to support the infrastructure development there. Fortunately or unfortunately, we wouldn't be in an area that has those low values, so I don't think that we would be as benefiting under that option. Option E looks at modern methods of construction and whether there should be a premium paid for those housing delivered using modern methods of construction. And option F is linked into that, which actually talks about setting a percentage of delivery of modern methods of construction before you actually qualify for the bonus. I think our draft response talks about, you're going to have to define what is modern methods of construction, what percentage of the house might be constructed using that. I think that could be quite fraught with difficulty in actually defining what does that mean. And there are some issues around delivery of modern methods of construction, particularly for smaller sites because of the cost of doing that at the present time. And then option G talks about a requirement for a local plan and whether that should be you must have that in place, or whether actually you should show that you're demonstrating good progress towards that. We propose here, because of the timescales involved and the fact that the submission has to be in by the 7th of April or on the 7th of April, and this was the only cabinet that we could bring this to, that we continue to work with the portfolio holder for finance and planning, because this is obviously a cross organisational response, as it's not just purely finance, it dwells quite heavily on planning, but both Phil and myself work with the 2 portfolio holders to finalise submission. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you for taking us through that, Debbie. I guess I just need to pick up on the recommendation on page 108, 6.1. The recommendation should read, and there's an insert of words, to delegate, and then the insert starts, the response to the future of the new homes bonus consultation, and then back to the words that are before you, to the portfolio holders for finance and planning in consultation with the director resources and the director place. So again, just noting that the recommendation picks up exactly what's being delegated in that way. So I'll propose that at that point in time. Phil, as Director of Place, is there anything you wanted to add before I go back to the portfolio holders?
No, thank you, Chair. No, been working on this with Debbie and with Rodney, and obviously Helen has input as well. So no, all covered off. Happy with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Trudy, was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, just to thank Debbie actually for getting the sample of the answers out to all members to have any input if they wanted to have any input on this. It's a really big consultation with a lot of work has to go into it to produce the answers. So yeah, just to thank her, and then I'll see you at the final meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Trudy. And I'd just like to pass that thanks on as well to Debbie and the team for, as Trudy did there, for getting the initial draft out. While it says 30 questions, there's, as we just heard, there's parts A and part B and option A and option B. So there's a lot there to work through. So thank you for getting that. Have you had any responses from members? Have they taken the opportunity to come back to you?
I haven't had anything back, Chair, but I would just like to add it has been a real joint effort between Phil and Rodney and Paul Harris and Helen. It's been a team effort.
Okay, thank you. But that's good that you've given the members the opportunity to come back to you though. So thank you for that. Lana, you had your hand up?
Yes, I was just going to say it seems to be the time for consultations. I can't even remember how many live ones we have in planning at the moment, about 4, 5, if not more, which the team are really working through. So no, well done to Debbie and Helen and Phil for getting this out as soon as possible so that we can respond accordingly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for noting that. Joe?
I'd just like to second the amended recommendation as you stated earlier, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Are there any other questions or points? No. Okay, so that brings us back to the recommendation at 6.1. Again, I'll just read that out just to confirm. So it's to delegate the response to the future of the new homes bonus consultation to the portfolio holders for finance and planning in consultation with the Director of Resource and the Director of Place. So that's the recommendation before us, which I proposed and has been seconded by Joe. So James, over to you.
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Copplestone.
4, please. Thank you.
Councillor Emsell.
4.
Councillor Hempsell.
4.
Councillor Leggett.
4.
Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
4.
Councillor Vincent.
4.
And Councillor Wymark.
4.
That's carried unanimously, Chairman.
Thank you, James. Okay, so that then moves us on to item 15, which is the exclusion of press and public. I move that press and public be excluded from the meeting for the remaining items of business because otherwise information which is exempt information by virtue of paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended by the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order